welcome back to this one where we actually do a bit more and finish the last two bits of transformations. So this might take a while. So last two transformations, the first one is what we call phase shift. But it's another type of shift. So we talked about vertical shift before. So phase shift is actually a shift in the x direction. So horizontal shift. And this horizontal shift, if we've seen functions before, it must be x minus h inside the function, wherever the x is. So really, really close to x or a variable, your h is right next to it. So to add on to our function, f of theta is equal to a times trig theta minus h plus k. And we're slowly building and building more and more. And if you're kind of confused in these lessons, please make sure you look back and get comfortable with the previous lesson before we move on to the next one. So a times trig of theta minus h plus k. Let's look at our graph and see what happens, and we'll actually talk about why that's happening. So I'm going to get rid of k. I'm going to get rid of a. I'll also keep this here because that will be used. Let's just go and do a minus h. Add a slider for h. And we'll start with h at 0. And can I change it by pi over 6? We'll do pi over 12. So I want to change it by pi because our x values are in pi. We see over here, talk about pi, 0, 2 pi. So as I move my h around, we see that the whole thing is actually shifting forward. It's sliding across, and it's repeating. You see this like a wave just moving back and forth. So my x value is changing. Why is that? So initially, my x value, my theta, is starting at 0. I want to start my circle at 0. Then we're going to go up to pi over 2. Then I go down to pi, down to 3 pi over 2, back up to 2 pi. What this h value is doing, it's actually, I want to add on to it. I want to actually increase it. So I'm actually going to start earlier, like adding on like h value. So you're subtracting from theta. We're saying to get to 0 now, I'm not starting at 0. I need to get my theta to this value, which should be, actually change it to over here. So in order to get to where my 0 was initially, this h value is pi over 2. I first need to add a pi over 2 first. And then after, once theta is pi over 2, it becomes pi over 2 minus pi over 2. So we'll change this to pi divided by 2. I first need to add a whole pi over 2 first in order to get back to 0. So it looks a bit weird. Why is it minus h and then k is plus k? That's why. It's because we're shifting in a different way. So I'll once again leave us with this. This is my horizontal shift. This is my vertical shift. Horizontal shift. Vertical shift. And a positive h value means it's going to the right, and negative h value means it's going to the left, which is a bit confusing with negative here. So let's practice this. Let's do one practice problem with just h, and we'll do another one with everything. So the cosine of theta, we thought a bit about minus. Let's say do plus pi over 4. Actually, we'll just do it plus pi. Cosine theta plus pi. Once again, we must list everything that we know. Amplitude here, we have nothing, but nothing means it's being multiplied by 1. There's an invisible 1 right there. Amplitude is 1. My period, we still not talking about how it changes. It's still 2 pi. So therefore my y step is 1, and my x step, you can kind of remember this is pi over 2, but as a reminder, it's your period over 4 to get pi over 2. That's why this here. Period over 4 equals x step. And now my shifts. My shifts, in this case, no vertical, but I have a horizontal. And this, my h is negative pi. So I'm going left pi units. Because a positive means to the left, like negative h means to the left, or positive over here means left. It is tricky. Just pick one to memorize and be comfortable with. I like to think just the h, because that'll be useful as we make our own equations. So this is my graph for this, my properties for this. Now going back to how to graph, over here, we want to plot our first point from the power function. So cosine, where does it start? Cosine actually starts over here at 1, 0, 1. Next up, we do our amplitude. We multiply our y value by amplitude. 1 times 1 is still 1. And next up, we do our shifts. So I'm going to shift left pi units. This is a bit tricky. We got to see how far is pi, because like scale, we've been kind of making up. One way of doing it is just pick something. Like you should have a pencil so you can erase and redraw it. This one is a bit tricky to erase, so I'm going to put it a bit further down here. So I would say get used to drawing graphs. As you do more and more problems, you will see like roughly the relationship between like what the size should be. The actual way of doing it is actually look at your period and relate either to your x step or your period, relate how much you're shifting to that. I'm shifting pi units to the left, and my whole period is 2 pi. So half of my period will be to the left. So I want to kind of balance it so I have enough space to draw half. If I actually plot it over here, then my entire graph would actually just go up to here, because this is half my period. And so this would be a whole period. So that's why I did shift it down a bit more. Also look at your x step. Pi and pi over 2. So I want 2 x steps. I'm going to plot 2 points on my left. Once again, if it's over here, my next point will be like over here. And it gets very, very congested. So you could spread it out. Look at your x step. Look at your period. Space it out how you feel fit. So this is my point of negative pi 1. Once you have your first point, all you do is look at your x and y steps. So cosine, my parent function of cosine is this. Where I go start up here, I end over here, and these are my points, like cutting it. So I go down first. I want to go down first. So I go down a y, so 1 minus 1 is 0. And I want to go to the right an x step. So negative pi plus pi over 2 gives me negative pi over 2. So over here at negative pi over 2, 0. We still go downwards. So I go down over here, down to negative 1. And I go to the right pi over 2. So I'm at 0, negative 1. We keep on going to the right. 0 plus pi over 2 gives me pi over 2. Negative 1 plus 1 gives me 0. So we get pi over 2, 0. And finally, go to the right one more. So it becomes pi plus 1, 1. Pi, 1. This is my graph. 5 points. All we needed was the starting point, and you just follow your x and y steps. Okay. So now we'll do one more with, feel free to skip ahead a couple minutes if you feel comfortable with this. Next up will be, actually I'll make this a different video. Next video will be horizontal shifts and like period changes. So we're going to do one more problem together. G of theta equals 1/2 sine theta minus pi over 4 plus 1. A lot going on here. Let's work it out. So we get what we need, amplitude. Amplitude is 1/2, because right here. My period is still unchanging. It's still 2 pi. Y step is my amplitude. So y step is 1/2. X step is period divided by 4. So x step is pi over 2. Now we do our shifts. Shifts, pi over 4 to the right. 1 up. 1 to the up, but like 1 up. 1 unit up and pi over 4 units to the right. Because it's a negative, so it goes to the right, going up. We draw our axes. Sine, when we get our starting point. So sine begins at 0, 0. Amplitude is 1/2. That does not change it because 0 times 1/2 is still 0. Next, I do my shifts. It doesn't matter which way you do it. But I'm going to do up 1 first. So let's go up to here. And to the right, pi over 4. How much is pi over 4? My period is 2 pi. So pi over 4 is a small piece of it. My x step is pi over 2, which is bigger than pi over 4. So I don't need to shift too much to the right. So I'm going to shift over here. I'm going to start at pi over 4, 1. I wrote that kind of big. Pi over 4, 1. And from here on out, we just do x step, y step. Looking back at our parent graph. So this is my sine. Sine starts over here, start, ends over here. I go up to the middle, down to the middle. So I go up, 1 plus 1/2 is 1.5. And pi over 4 plus pi over 2, let's write it out. Pi over 4 plus pi over 2. Adding fractions, you need same denominator. So for this one right here, I need to multiply it by 2 over 2. Pi over 4 plus 2 pi over 4 gives me 3 pi over 4. Understanding this, we can kind of ignore pi for now. So I have 1/4 plus 1/2. That gives me 3/4, 3/4. So go forward and try to keep it to scale. I went 1/2, 1/4, so 1/2 should be over here. 3 pi over 4, 1.5. Next up, I'll go down. So go subtract 1/2, so back down to 1. And adding another pi over 2 to this, we actually could just keep on adding 2 pi over 4. I'm going to keep it just like this. So now I'm over here, 5 pi over 4, 1. We want to go down this time. So 1 minus 1/2 gives me 1/2. 5 pi over 4 plus 2 pi over 4 gives me 7 pi over 4. 1/2. And then finally, we go back up to 1. And my x value is 7 pi over 4 plus 2 pi over 4. So it's 9 pi over 4. And now this is my graph. We see it still looks just like a sine curve. It might be a bit flatter because amplitude is 1/2. It doesn't really start at 0, but this is my graph. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and good luck.